The alarm clock screamed at 6 a.m. sharp, and Olivia's first thought was that she needed a new one, preferably one that didn't sound like it was trying to start a riot. She groaned, slapping the snooze button like she was swatting a fly, but the damage was done. Another day was beginning, whether she liked it or not. Stumbling out of bed, Olivia squinted at the half-empty coffee cup from last night, now cold and abandoned on her nightstand. A perfect metaphor for my life, she muttered to herself, half joking, but fully aware of the truth in her words. It wasn't just the coffee that had gone cold, it was everything. The spark she once had for life was now buried under piles of laundry, endless grocery lists, and the looming threat of another PTA meeting. As she shuffled toward the kitchen, the house was eerily quiet, a peaceful calm that Olivia knew wouldn't last. In just a few minutes, her two kids would explode into the morning routine like they were auditioning for a reality TV show, Mornings Gone Wild. And if history was any indication, today would be no different. She passed the living room and nearly tripped over a toy truck left strategically in her path. Well played, she grumbled, imagining her children as secret agents on a mission to take her down one misplaced object at a time. But as she bent down to pick it up, she felt the familiar tug of exhaustion pulling at her every muscle. When did bending over become an extreme sport? To anyone else, Olivia had the perfect life, a nice house, a loving husband, two energetic kids, and a job she could handle from home. But behind the scenes, Olivia felt more like a circus performer trying to juggle flaming swords while riding a unicycle. She wasn't sure how much longer she could keep up the act. Today, though, something felt off. The exhaustion was no longer just physical, it was seeping into her very soul. As she poured cereal into bowls and set out the morning essentials, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was on autopilot, going through the motions without actually living. The routine was as predictable as it was overwhelming, and Olivia was desperate for a change. Or maybe just a nap would be good too. But as the first rays of sunlight pierced through the blinds, Olivia took a deep breath and tried to muster the energy to face the day. Little did she know, this ordinary morning was the start of something extraordinary, an unexpected twist that would make her question everything she thought she knew about her life, her family, and herself. What Olivia didn't realize was that sometimes, life had a way of throwing curveballs when you least expected it, and today's curveball was waiting just around the corner, ready to turn her world upside down in the most unexpected way. Just as Olivia started to convince herself that today might be different, the first sign of impending chaos appeared in the form of her son, Max. Still half asleep, he wandered into the kitchen wearing his shirt backward and mismatched socks, one with stripes, the other with dinosaurs. "Morning, Mom," he mumbled, before promptly tripping over the same toy truck she had moved not 5 minutes earlier. "Max, we really need to talk about your ninja training," Olivia quipped as she helped him up. "But first, maybe we try matching socks?" "Just a thought." Max grinned sleepily, clearly unfazed by his wardrobe malfunction. "I like them this way. It's my style." "Of course it is," Olivia sighed, ruffling his hair. She handed him a bowl of cereal and watched as he dug in, milk spilling over the sides like a mini tidal wave. And so it begins, she thought, bracing herself for the day's oncoming storm. As if on cue, her daughter, Sophie, burst into the kitchen like a whirlwind. "Mom, where's my purple headband? I need it. It's the only one that matches my outfit," she declared, flinging open cabinets and drawers in her frantic search. "Good morning to you too, Sophie," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice calm, despite the rising sense of dread. "Did you check your room? You know, where things usually are?" "No time, Mom. I'm already late for my Zoom class." Sophie's voice pitched higher with every word, turning what should have been a simple question into a full-blown emergency. Olivia knew better than to ask why a 9-year-old needed a matching headband for a virtual class, where half the kids didn't even bother wearing pants. But now wasn't the time for logic, it was time for action. Okay, I'll help you find it, but you've got to chill out a little, alright?" As they scoured the house for the elusive headband, Olivia could feel her patience wearing thin. This was just the tip of the iceberg, soon she'd be dealing with forgotten homework, missing shoes, and the dreaded lunchbox negotiations. And it's not even 7 to 30, she thought, with a mix of exasperation and resignation. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sophie found the headband in the most obvious place, on her own bed. "Found it," she announced triumphantly, as if she'd just solved a great mystery. "Of course you did," Olivia muttered under her breath, trying not to laugh at the absurdity of it all. But any relief she felt was short-lived as she glanced at the clock and realized she was running out of time. Not just for the morning routine, but for everything. The weight of her endless responsibilities pressed down on her, and for a moment, she wondered if she was the only mother in the world who felt this way. But there was no time for self-reflection, not when the doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of yet another unexpected challenge. Who could that be at this hour? Olivia wondered, a mix of curiosity and dread creeping up her spine. She took a deep breath, preparing herself for whatever lay ahead, knowing that today was far from over. And somehow, she had a feeling that this interruption was just the beginning of a very unpredictable day. By mid-morning, Olivia felt like she had been hit by a freight train of chaos. With Max's cereal spilled on the floor and Sophie's headband saga behind her, she hoped for a moment of respite. But as she glanced at the clock and realized she had barely scratched the surface of her to-do list, she could almost hear the universe laughing at her expense. Her husband, Dave, called from the office, his voice crackling over the phone. "Hey, hon, just checking in. How's the day going? Do you really want to know?" Olivia replied, half serious. "Let's just say, if I survive today without losing my mind, it'll be a miracle." "Sounds like a typical Tuesday," Dave chuckled. "Hang in there. I'll be home in a few hours." "Great," Olivia said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'll try to hold the fort until then, armed with nothing but a cup of cold coffee and sheer willpower." She hung up, shaking her head. Just as she was about to tackle the mountain of laundry that seemed to have magically multiplied overnight, Sophie burst into the room, holding a crumpled piece of paper. "Mom, I forgot to tell you, I have a big presentation at school today. Can you help me prepare?" "Of course," Olivia said, trying to keep her cool as she mentally calculated how many things she had yet to do. "What's the topic?" "Dinosaurs," Sophie said, eyes wide with excitement, "and I need to make a model. By today." Olivia blinked, then blinked again. "A model? Of dinosaurs? As in, you need a full-scale T-Rex by lunchtime?" "No, just a small one," Sophie said, as if that made it any less daunting. Olivia sighed deeply. "Right. I'll get on that. Meanwhile, can you go and find something to wear for the presentation? Preferably not your pajamas?" As if things weren't already chaotic enough, the doorbell rang again, this time accompanied by a knock that seemed more insistent. Olivia peeked out the window and saw the mail carrier standing there, looking at her with an expression of mild curiosity. "Perfect," Olivia muttered, opening the door. "Just what I needed," another interruption. The mail carrier handed her a stack of envelopes, one of which was an urgent-looking letter marked with the school's logo. Olivia tore it open, her heart sinking as she read about an upcoming parent-teacher conference she had completely forgotten about. "Fantastic," she said, her voice tinged with despair. "Just what I needed, more to add to my ever-growing list." With a sinking feeling in her stomach, Olivia shuffled back inside, trying to process the avalanche of tasks that seemed to be piling up. As she juggled the school letter, Sophie's dinosaur model, and Max's growing list of complaints about not having his favorite lunch, she felt as though she was balancing on a tightrope without a safety net. Finally, with a deep breath and a touch of humor to keep her sane, Olivia thought, if I can just make it through today, I might just earn a gold medal in parenting. She looked around at the chaos with a weary smile. At least it's never boring, she mused, bracing herself for whatever came next. She clung to the hope that somehow, she would manage to keep it all together, or at least find a way to laugh at the absurdity of it all. After a chaotic morning, Olivia finally managed to corral the kids into some semblance of order. Max was at his Zoom class, Sophie had begrudgingly put on actual clothes for her presentation, and Olivia was left alone for a precious few moments of silence. As she stared at the mess that was now her kitchen, she couldn't help but feel a tiny glimmer of victory. "I survived the morning," she thought. "If only I could put that on my resume." Just as she was about to dive into the laundry pile, her phone buzzed. It was a reminder for the PTA meeting she had somehow overlooked. Oh, fantastic, Olivia thought, quickly glanced at the clock, just enough time to squeeze in a quick lunch and prepare a brief for the meeting. If she moved fast enough, she might even get the laundry done. In the midst of this, Olivia noticed a strange noise coming from the living room. It was a peculiar scratching sound that grew louder with each passing second. Her heart raced as she tiptoed towards the noise, half expecting to find a wild animal, or worse, one of the kids having another meltdown. As she rounded the corner, she saw Max, who had evidently turned his Zoom class into a makeshift archaeological dig. He was on his hands and knees, digging through the cushions of the couch with a determination that could only be described as obsessive. "Max, what on earth are you doing?" Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice steady, despite her mounting frustration. "I'm looking for the remote," Max said, his face smeared with a mix of crumbs and determination. "It's been missing for days." "Of course it has," Olivia said, rubbing her temples. "And why, exactly, does this require a full excavation?" "Because it's important," Max replied earnestly. "We were watching a documentary about dinosaurs, and I need to finish it for my project." Olivia stared at him, trying to process the sheer improbability of the situation. Dinosaurs, lost remotes, and couch excavation. If she didn't laugh, she'd cry. "All right," she said, trying to maintain her composure, "let's find the remote so I can at least get some semblance of normalcy back." Just then, Sophie burst into the room, her presentation supplies in tow. "Mom, I need a glue stick. Mom, I need a glue stick. And I can't find my notebook anywhere," she declared, her voice reaching a new level of panic. Olivia's heart sank. Between the couch excavation and the missing glue stick, her sense of order was rapidly disintegrating. "At this point, I'm considering hiring a private investigator," she thought, trying to hold back her laughter. "Sophie, I'll help you find the notebook, but you might want to check in the living room. Max seems to have turned it into his personal treasure hunt." Sophie groaned and headed towards the living room, while Olivia reluctantly returned to the couch, joining Max in the search. As they sifted through the cushions, Olivia couldn't help but think that this was one of those moments she'd look back on and laugh, or at least, she hoped she would. Just as they found the remote wedged between the couch cushions, the doorbell rang once more. Olivia looked at Max and Sophie with a mix of disbelief and exasperation. "Well, let's see what new surprise awaits us," she said, bracing herself for yet another unexpected twist in her already unpredictable day. The suspense hung thick in the air. Olivia opened the door with a sigh, bracing herself for yet another interruption. Instead of a surprise package or a neighbor with a new crisis, she was met by Mrs. Johnson, the next-door neighbor and self-proclaimed neighborhood watchdog. "Hi, Olivia. I hope I'm not interrupting," Mrs. Johnson said cheerfully, holding a plate of what looked like homemade cookies. "I thought I'd drop by and check in. And, of course, I brought you some cookies." Olivia forced a smile, trying to ignore the nagging thought that Mrs. Johnson might be here to share another unsolicited piece of advice or gossip. "Oh, thank you, Mrs. Johnson. You're always so thoughtful," Olivia said, taking the plate and noticing how Mrs. Johnson's eyes were already scanning the scene of organized chaos behind her. "You're welcome, dear. And I must say, it looks like you've had quite the morning," Mrs. Johnson said, peering into the house with a mix of curiosity and sympathy. Olivia's smile grew a little more strained. "You could say that. It's been one of those days. Well, I just wanted to say that if you need anything, don't hesitate to ask," Mrs. Johnson said, her gaze lingering on the scattered papers and half-finished projects around the living room. "Sometimes it helps to have a friendly ear." As soon as Mrs. Johnson left, Olivia let out a long breath. The offer of help was appreciated, but it felt like adding insult to injury, like someone giving you a chocolate bar when what you really need is a vacation. She glanced at the plate of cookies and decided to indulge in one, hoping it might provide a brief escape from the chaos. As she bit into the cookie, she was greeted with an unexpected crunch. "Is that a whole pecan inside?" she wondered, trying to identify the strange sensation. Despite the odd texture, she appreciated the small act of kindness. As Olivia chewed thoughtfully, she noticed the time. There was just enough time to catch her breath before she had to head to the PTA meeting. She decided to take a moment to herself, if only to sit down and actually finish her cold coffee. Just as she settled into a rare moment of relative peace, her phone buzzed with a message from Dave. "I'm wrapping up early. Should be home in about an hour. Anything I can help with?" Olivia felt a wave of relief. "Well, if you can perform magic and fix my entire day, that would be great," she texted back, adding a wink emoji for good measure. "But seriously, I could use a hand with the PTA meeting prep." As she prepared for the meeting, Olivia took a moment to reflect on the day's events. She remembered Max's dinosaur quest, Sophie's headband drama, and the inexplicable but oddly comforting presence of Mrs. Johnson's cookies. It was all a bit surreal, but she couldn't deny that there was something strangely endearing about the chaos. The PTA meeting loomed ahead, but Olivia felt a renewed sense of determination. Maybe, just maybe, she could handle everything if she approached it with the right attitude. After all, if she could survive a morning filled with dinosaurs, glue sticks, and unsolicited advice, she could tackle anything. With her newfound resolve, Olivia headed out for the meeting, armed with a combination of humor and hope. As Olivia walked into the school gym for the PTA meeting, she could almost hear the ominous dun-dun-dun in the background. The room was buzzing with parents huddled in cliques, gossiping about everything from their children's latest antics to the state of the cafeteria food. Olivia made a beeline for the refreshment table, desperately in need of caffeine, before facing the real reason she was here. She grabbed a cup of coffee that tasted suspiciously like it had been brewed with a side of regret and joined a group of parents discussing the latest school fundraiser. "Oh, Olivia, you made it," one of the parents greeted her. "We're just about to start the discussion on our next event." "Fantastic," Olivia replied, trying to sound enthusiastic. "I can't wait to hear about the fundraiser that will somehow require more effort than our last 3 combined." As the meeting commenced, Olivia sat through various reports and proposals, all while trying to keep her eyes open. The minutes ticked by like hours, and she could feel her patience thinning. Just when she thought she might actually fall asleep with her eyes open, the principal stepped up to the podium. "Thank you all for coming," the principal began, his voice echoing through the gym. "Now, on to the most exciting part of our evening, the upcoming spring carnival." The crowd erupted into applause, and Olivia noticed a fellow parent, Mrs. Blanchard, already whipping out her notebook with a fervor that seemed almost cult-like. "This is going to be so much fun," Mrs. Blanchard exclaimed. "I'm thinking face painting and a petting zoo." "Petting zoo?" Olivia whispered to the person next to her. "Are we planning a carnival or a small-scale zoo?" Before she could get an answer, the principal continued, "And to make things even more exciting, we're adding a raffle this year. But we need volunteers for ticket sales and organizing the prizes." Olivia's heart sank as she looked around at the eager volunteers, all jumping at the chance to sign up. She knew she couldn't escape without getting roped into something. As she pondered her options, her phone buzzed with a message from Dave. "I'm on my way." "How's the meeting?" Olivia sighed and texted back, "So far, it's an epic saga of carnival planning and parent drama. I think I'm about to volunteer for something. Or possibly just spontaneously combust." At that very moment, the principal's gaze locked onto Olivia. "Olivia, you're just the person we need. How about taking charge of the raffle?" Olivia froze. This is it. The moment of truth. "Sure," she said, her voice betraying a hint of panic. "Raffle sounds great." The meeting wrapped up, and Olivia left feeling both relieved and overwhelmed. She was now in charge of organizing a raffle, a task she had never anticipated but couldn't back out of. As she made her way back to the car, she saw Dave pulling up, looking like a superhero arriving just in time to save the day. "You survived." Dave greeted her with a grin. "How was it?" "Surviving is one way to put it," Olivia replied, giving him a tired but relieved smile. "I'm now officially in charge of the raffle for the spring carnival. You know, just another item to add to the list." Dave raised an eyebrow. "A raffle? I guess that's one way to make your day even more interesting." Olivia laughed, despite the exhaustion. Let's just say, today's been one for the books. And the day isn't even over yet. With Dave's support and the unexpected camaraderie of the PTA meeting behind her, Olivia headed home, ready to tackle whatever the rest of the day had in store. Little did she know, the evening was about to present its own set of challenges, but she was determined to face them with the same blend of humor and resilience that had seen her through the day so far. As Olivia and Dave stepped aside from the commotion of the PTA meeting, she could hardly contain her curiosity. "All right, Dave, what's going on?" she asked, her voice a mix of anxiety and hope. Dave took a deep breath, looking more serious than Olivia had ever seen him. "Olivia, I've been meaning to tell you this all day, but with everything happening, it's been hard to find the right moment." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "And that moment is now? When the PTA meeting has just turned into a blackout carnival?" Dave nodded, trying to keep his expression calm. "Yes. I have some news about my job. Well, I've been offered a promotion." Olivia blinked. "A promotion? That sounds good, right?" Dave hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, but it comes with a catch. I'll need to start working longer hours and possibly travel more. It's a big commitment." Olivia's mind raced. Longer hours? More travel? She tried to imagine the added stress on top of their current chaos. "Exactly," Dave said, with a hint of nervousness. "I wanted to be honest with you before making any final decisions." Olivia and Dave exchanged a look, their conversation interrupted by another round of chaos. "I'll help with the cleanup and then we can talk more about the promotion later," she said to Dave. "Maybe we can use this as a chance to recalibrate our plans." As they worked together to restore order, Olivia and Dave managed to clear away the mess from the earlier fiasco. Despite the challenges of the day, Olivia felt a renewed sense of resilience and optimism. "So, what's your decision about the promotion?" she asked, trying to keep the tone light. Dave looked at her and smiled. "I think we'll have a lot to talk about, but I'm glad we're in this together." Olivia's heart warmed as she realized that despite the chaos, they had navigated the day with humor and teamwork. The adventure had been wild and unpredictable, but it had also brought them closer together, proving that sometimes, the best way to handle life's surprises is with a good laugh and a lot of love.